Welcome back to Hot Takes and Deep Dives, and my next guest is someone I grew up watching every single week on Saturday Night Live. She created iconic characters like the cheerleaders with Will Ferrell, and her impression of Barbara Walters has stood the test of time since the debut of The View. She's made appearances on Strangers with Candy, Hot in Cleveland, Curb Your Enthusiasm. Hi, Cheri Oteri.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm very good, thank you.
I guess we'll just start with how has your week been going? Generally speaking, how are you?
Okay, I'm fine. Let me see. I just had to get a new roof put on my house and new gutters. And it's so funny. In all of my life, I don't think I've ever looked at anybody's roof. And now I'm looking at everybody's roof and seeing how mine compares. And it's almost like as much as you spend on a new roof, I want to have people over to look at the roof. It's like, there's so much tree covering it. I'm like, I need to spend more money to cut the trees down so everybody can see the freaking roof.
Well, and also so much money went into it. You want to show it off.
Oh my gosh. A lot of money. It's like, I wish I could wear the roof, but I can't.
What I really want to do today is I want to tell your story, how you wound up with this incredible success on Saturday Night Live. And I know that you grew up in the suburbs of Philadelphia. You actually grew up in Upper Darby, which is actually where Tina Fey is from as well, coincidentally.
Yeah, I went to the Catholic school. She went to the public school.
You didn't know each other, though, did you?
No. She was a few years younger than me.
Okay. Like, what were you like as a kid? Like, were you a funny kid? Like, did you grow up watching Saturday Night Live? Like, who were you?
Yes, of course I did. I mean, like, I was one of those people. I just watched it. And, we didn't have the choices that people do today, but it's still so iconic, the show. Yes, I watched it all the time. And I used to watch people and then imitate them. Like, I would watch Little House on the Prairie, and then I'd go upstairs and I'd put on my prairie-looking pajamas and then put my hair in braids and then go downstairs and say, Ma, when's Pa coming home? And she goes, I don't know, but he better fucking bring some money. I'll tell you that. And I'm like, cut! Because in my head, I would always act as if I was being filmed. And it's strange. Like, I really did I was alone a lot. So I truly just entertained myself. And sometimes I think when I wasn't being funny, I wasn't even seen.
Really? So you were a shy kid, except when the camera was turned on, or you sort of turned the camera on yourself in a way? Yeah,
until I turned the camera on. It was kind of like I knew I could make people laugh, but if I wasn't necessarily, I felt like I wasn't even there. You know what I mean?
You have this amazing quote, like later on, eventually you obviously would make it on Saturday Night Live, and you would go on to be on the cover of Rolling Stone with like all the new stars of that year, like Will Ferrell and Chris Kattan. And you said in this article, quote, when I was a kid, I used to just study people. Now as an adult, I'm being everybody I ever watched.
Yeah, I feel like kids do things to kind of make their worlds better, and so much of it is in their imagination. And I lived in my imagination. It was my escape. And what kind of sucked was it made it very hard for me to be present with people.
This is when you're like in high school or younger?
No, little, growing up. High school, I got much better. I became more free to be myself. But I always felt like I was born without an identity. I remember thinking that, like, I was born without an identity. So I used to just watch people be, and I would study them. And I'm like, because I was always amazed at people who just were who they were. They didn't censor themselves. And I just would study them. And then I guess as I got older, I truly did become even if it was an amalgamation of people. Characters, like I'd put some people together, I wouldn't be somebody exact on the nose. You know what I'm saying? Like when I did the Italian lady on the porch, that was an essence of my Italian grandma. When I did the prescription drug lady, that was essence of my Irish nana. And it was kind of like, it wasn't on the nose. because you don't want anybody to think you're doing them.
Right. Well, especially not the prescription drug lady. Was that Colette Reardon?
Yeah. But it's kind of like you do. And even when people do impressions, I love when people do a take on somebody instead of when they're really dead on. When they're dead on, I'm like, I'm impressed, but then I'm not as interested. But if someone does a take on somebody, it keeps me interested.
Like that, it reminds me of Daryl Hallman's take on Bill Clinton.
Yeah.
Like he wasn't just mimicking him. He created a character. And I think that's what the best impressionists or the best people who do impressions on Saturday Night Live, like on paper, it's an impression, but they're actually creating a character.
And the thing is once the audience buys you as that person, then and you get real comfortable being that person, then you can riff. And I started doing that with Barbara Walters. Once I knew, like I was made to do her. That is not something I wanted to do.
What do you mean?
Lauren wanted me to do her, and I was like, I don't do impressions. And because I didn't do impressions, and he goes, I did characters, but not impressions. And it was like, no, he wants you to do her, and that's it. And so I was like, oh shit, and all I thought was that people are going to say she's no Gilda Radner. I was going to be compared to that. But then I thought to myself, well, it's been a while. And what take should I have on her? I have to have a completely different take. So I just studied her all over again and tried to get more of her mannerisms and then funny things that she would do in interviews. Mm-hmm. Like she would go in for, I thought, what makes her so good in an interview is she would give specific credits, compliments to whoever she was interviewing, very specific. And when people are specific with you, with what you've done, you feel very seen, and you let your guard down. You feel appreciated and respected. And so she would do that. And especially from a respected journalist like her, to be seen would really probably feel good. And then once she established that, then she'd go in for the kill. Like you're a hip hop mogul, you're an actor and a concert pianist. Why the porn? I'm just speeding all of that up. But I loved, well, you're certainly one of the most controversial and talked about first ladies this nation has ever had. Like she doesn't do that, but I started having so much fun doing her that I was able to take liberties.
I mean, did you by any chance read the book Ladies Who Punch, the View tell-all?
Oh yeah.
So that book is phenomenal. Like everyone needs to read that book. But in that book, they share, like the original cast of The View says that it was when SNL did that first sketch that The View really took off.
I think it does give a show notoriety, but it was like so ready to be spoofed. It was popular and I was watching it. I watch it to this day. I got to see The View every day. I was doing Barbara Walters before that. I would do her on 2020 and I would do her like, I used to love writing her specials. Remember her Oscar specials?
Oh yeah.
And her, the most intriguing people, or
trying to get Ricky Martin to admit that he was gay before he was out.
Yeah, the top 10 most intriguing people or whatever. And so I did a few of those. And then when The View happened, it was my God, that woman, she did everything. And so it was just so fun to have a place to do her all the time. Even if she wasn't doing The View, I would still probably be doing her a lot because she did 2020. She did the specials. You know what I'm saying?
What was it like? So on her last day of The View, they invited you on and you were literally at the desk with her. What was that experience like?
Okay, I'll tell you the truth behind that story. What happened was my cousin, Cheri Oteri from New Jersey, calls me up and she goes, hey, Cheri, Barbara's leaving The View. And I go, yeah, I heard. She goes, you should do something. And I go, yeah. And then we just kind of forgot about it. I forgot about it. But I did think in my head, what would I do if I were doing something like on that? And then the next thing I know, she calls me and she goes, hey, so I talked to the gang at the View. I go, excuse say what? She goes, yeah, I got on the phone with them. And I said,
how did she reach them?
This woman can reach anybody. And she has. And she has. She emails and people email her back. And she said they thought it was a great idea. And they said they would reach out to you closer to when she was leaving. And then I thought to myself, oh, they were probably being very gracious to her. And that's really nice. You know, I'm like, how funny is that? Well, a few months pass. I get a call from Frank at the View. And he goes, Cheri, Barbara's leaving. Your cousin Mary called. And she had a great idea of you doing something. And I'm like, oh my God, this is hysterical. So me doing that was because of my cousin Mary. And then he goes, what would you like to do? And I said, I gave him a couple of choices. I said, but my top one is me interviewing her as her. And he goes, Cheri, that's going to be really hard to do because that's going to involve her. And it's just going to be really hard. And I said, well, I'll write it with Frank, the writer there. And I said, we'll write it and you guys look at it. And so I would love it because they flew me out and it went well. And she was gracious. And the funny story about that was we're sitting there. She's across from me and she's all business. You know what I mean? Like she may say, so Cheri, don't move that. Do not move that. And it's, you're just like, you know.
Oh yeah. We've all seen and heard the Elizabeth Hasselbeck recorded audio.
Yeah. She is all business. And so what was funny was she looks in the monitor and she goes, oh, my hair's a mess. My hair's a mess. And her hair and makeup team come out, they zhuzh her and blah, 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 blah. And then they go back. And then a few minutes later, we're almost getting ready to, and she goes, my hair is still a mess. What's going on? My hair. And so they come back out again and they're like, zhuzh, and they go, Barbara, you're looking at Cheri's monitor. Because we would look exactly alike, like our dress, everything. And she started laughing. And I felt so good to have been a person that made Barbara Walters really laugh. And the funniest thing was that everybody was cracking up. Everybody was laughing. And then the hair and makeup people just walk off. And I'm like, so nothing, nobody's going to fix it.
And meanwhile, you're still doing Barbara Walters. The New Year's Eve, they, of course, Andy and Anderson had you to say, I mean, I don't remember what the line was, but it was obviously something to the effect of like, this is 2020.
Yeah, it was all about her saying this is 2020. So I just thought to myself, she's got to talk about topical things, but it's fun to throw in what she finds and who she finds interesting, you know, who she thinks is cool to hang out with, you know, her name dropping. So it's really fun because she's old school. And then afterwards, it did so well, they wanted me to do it again. And it's 2021, but it became more about, you know, because she had all these plans on 2020. You know, to sell her own reality show and this and that. And then it was like, okay, what happened to all your plans?
So going back, because I want to get to your path to SNL. So you leave Philly and I know that you moved I guess like you're in your 20s, you wind up moving out to LA and eventually you land at the Groundlings. And this is where you were.
I moved out to LA to get in the music business. I didn't come out to act or anything like that.
Were you a singer?
No, I wanted to be, but I didn't have a good enough voice. So I got behind the music and I worked at A&M Records for like 5 years. I worked in music publishing for a year and a half. And then I went over to the record company and worked in promotion. And the whole time I was doing that, I was taking classes at the Groundlings. And I just thought to myself, I was in awe of the Groundlings. I'm like, because people always said, oh, you should do stand-up. And I couldn't see myself doing stand-up. And I said, a woman said to me once, you should do the Groundlings. And I go, what's the Groundlings? And she says, it's an improv troupe. And I seriously said, what's improv? And she's like, it's comedy you kind of make up as you go along. And a light bulb went off. I'm like, wait, what? And so I went, I saw everybody that had been there before me, like Lorraine Newman and Phil Hartman. And then I saw a show and the clouds parted. And the funny thing is I would have never dreamt that big. You know what I mean?
To join a troupe, like a comedy troupe?
No, to think that I could have been in a comedy troupe. You know what I mean? Because I hadn't acted before or anything. But I am telling you, it was like the clouds parted and I thought to myself, it meant the world to me. Like I was there 5 minutes early and left 5 minutes late. I couldn't sleep if I had a bad night, at class, and I couldn't sleep if I had a good night at class because it just meant so much. I loved it so much. And I would saw a show every Friday night at 10 o'clock because the students got to see the late show for free. And I learned so much from watching all of those shows.
Who was there at the same time as you?
Before me, who I used to watch was Kathy Griffin, Lisa Kudrow. And I remember seeing Allie Wentworth. She was in the Sunday Company.
Oh, wow.
And what I know is the Groundlings, SNL didn't go to the Groundlings for many years. No one could even get them there. And then once I got into the classes, I took classes for 2 years. And then I got into the Sunday Company, did that for 2.5 years. Here's the funny thing. When I was in the Sunday Company, there was a guy who was in the company, Chad, and his girlfriend was Lorraine Newman. And I'll never forget it. Like he said to me, "You want to come over to the house and write?" And I go, yeah. And then I'm at his house. He goes, "Do you want to meet Lorraine?" And I go, yeah. And I went up and I met her and she had just had her first baby, Hannah. She was breastfeeding her. And I'm like, I can't believe I'm meeting Lorraine Newman. She's breastfeeding.
Oh my God. Hannah, by the way, Lorraine Newman's daughter, is the star of Hacks.
Oh yeah. She would come and see the shows and she would take me aside and she goes, "You're going to make it. You're going to make it." And then when I did get SNL, she called me, she talked to me, like very supportive and very comforting. And she was wonderful. And it's funny because she gave me what to anticipate a little bit. And I just had lunch with the kid who's on SNL right now, Aristotle. And I didn't know like his stuff or what he had done. But my friend said, "Hey, my friend just got SNL and, would you talk to him?" And I saw one sketch that he did because I don't watch the show really. And he was so funny. And it was fun to be able to say, okay, this is what's important.
What did Lorraine Newman say to you what did she say that was sort of anticipatory for you?
Well, it's finding somebody to write with you because the writers don't have to write for you. So the writers pretty much write whatever conceptually they want to write, and they usually cast the same people over and over again. So if there are people that sometimes never get written for, you're told that you have writers. But if I didn't write, you would never see me. You might see me at the end of a sketch. But what was great about the Groundlings is it taught me how to write. And because I had a day job at A&M Records, I couldn't meet up with people a lot to write with them. So I wrote by myself a lot. And it made me better. Then it was a treat to collaborate with somebody because, it sucks writing by yourself, but because of my schedule and I had a day job, a real job, I couldn't write with many people. And then I got into the main company and I was just like, oh my God, my dreams have come true. My dream was not SNL. It was to be a groundling. And then I got a manager and agent and he goes, "You need to quit your job." And I just thought to myself, oh my God, I have a good job. I remember thinking, I have dental, I have medical, I have a 92 Toyota Paseo. I have a townhouse that's 2 floors, like I'm paying like nothing for. I just thought it doesn't get better than this. And I didn't know whether if I should take the chance. But then something inside of me said, if we would have told you that this would have happened, you wouldn't have believed us. So we had to make you come in a different way. And then Chris Kattan had gotten someone from SNL out to see him in a showcase. Mm. And so it's really all about Chris. So he got a special show for himself to show off his stuff. And I had one sketch in there, it was a showcase for him. And I think Will had, I don't know what he had in there, but I was temping at Disney that Monday and my manager calls me and goes, "What are you doing next week?" And I go, "Very funny. I'll be temping at Disney." He goes, "No, you're going to be flying to New York to audition for Saturday Night Live." I go, and I scream.
Well, wait, hold on a second. Wait, back up a second. So SNL is watching Chris Kattan's essentially his audition or his showcase, his pre-audition, and you and Will had small parts in that.
Yeah.
And they noticed you based on your small, like based on basically as like a time filler while Chris Kattan was like changing or something.
Yes. Yes.
You must have just been shocked. I
just thought, I hope I do well and they'll remember me for next
What
time.
did you do? What were you doing? Like, what was it that they saw?
I did this character. I couldn't get on SNL for anything. It was, her name was Joy Lipton, and she was lingerie and cosmetics sales, at home, kind of like, Avon, but with lingerie as well. And she should not have been selling lingerie or cosmetics. She was incredibly like shy and just not sexy. And she was the antithesis of what she was selling. And so I couldn't get it on. But then I finally got it on Update. And, but they saw me do that. So I was just like, oh my gosh. Yeah, they saw me do one thing. Wow. And then I went out. And it was me, Chris, Will, and Jennifer Coolidge, who's brilliant.
So wait, so you knew Jennifer Coolidge she was in your troupe?
Yeah.
What was she like at that time?
She's hysterical. There's nobody like her. I remember being in a separate class from her, another class, and I'm thinking, oh my God, she's too pretty to be funny. And then I was wrong.
So they fly you, Will Ferrell, Chris Kattan, and Jennifer Coolidge to New York.
Yeah.
They put you up at a hotel. Mm-hmm. And what happens?
Well, let me see. I think Will, Chris, and I got the call back.
What was your audition?
We did like 7 minutes. That's all. It's like you do like 3 different characters. And then the second call back, we got flown out. You do 3, 4 more different characters. Like the first time you might have gotten 7 to 10 minutes. The second one was 5 to 7. And you had to do an impression. And I remember I didn't do impressions. So I did Lisa Marie Presley in an interview with Michael Jackson when they got married. And I just kind of ripped that. And then we found out like weeks and weeks later that Will and I had gotten it. Chris ended up getting it like maybe 6 months later or something like that.
Oh, wow. Was it Jennifer? I guess my bigger question around the Jennifer Coolidge thing, it actually sparks a broader question, which is the people in the Groundlings, because you mentioned, Kathy Griffin, Lisa Kudrow.
And a lot of people were also, Paul Rubens was a Groundling. And Melissa McCarthy, Maya Rudolph. The list goes on. Kristen Wiig, insane. How many amazing people, especially women, came out of there. A lot of people from Mad TV, and a lot of people became writers on on Mad TV and stuff like that.
Yeah. So speaking to that, my question was, so these are like a variety of talents, Kathy Griffin, eventually, she became an actress, but her background was in stand-up. Everybody is coming with a different strength. Like a Jennifer Coolidge, was her dream was she crushed when she didn't get the SNL, or was she like, whatever, I'm going to be an actress anyway. Like, this isn't my goal.
I don't know, because I remember she got a show called She TV, and I saw her on a poster, and I'm like, wow, she made it. And I was like, wow. And then, she did, but then the show kind of got canceled. Mm-hmm. I remember Lisa Kudrow got Frasier. She got the role of Roz. And then they replaced her. Mm-hmm. And I just used to think to myself, how that must feel. Because I know people that took the classes that when they got dropped out of the class, I just talked to some guy that I'm still friends with. He's still not over it. You put everything into, you get so far and then you can get cut, and it's really good preparation for SNL because, you write your thing and you're competing not only with your fellow actors, you're competing with the writers. And then just, a certain amount gets picked, like 11 sketches get picked, and then only 8 actually go to air. The dress show, you do all 11. And what doesn't work in the dress show, whatever gets cut. And I always say it's like you auditioned every week to get a show you already got,
Seth Meyers has talked about how it is so brutal. It is brutal until the good nights, because you can still think you can be in your, actually, no, it was either Seth Meyers or I interviewed Rachel Dratch for this show. And she told me how it's so brutal. You can be there in your ridiculous, you're in the last sketch of the night. It's making it to air. You're in your ridiculous costume outfit and it gets cut for time.
Yeah.
So now you're in, and she's relaying to me how she goes, so now I'm in the good nights in a ridiculous, let's say, bunny outfit. I'm just making it up. And it never, people are just like, why is she in that outfit? Like, people don't know.
And I'm telling you, to say that it's brutal is an understatement, because I don't think people realize, you have writers, but if I didn't write for myself, and then people know that you can write for yourself. Will could write for himself. He was a great writer, but he also got cast in a lot of things. So if what he wrote didn't get in, he knew he was taken care of.
Yes, it's well known that Will Ferrell was a favorite of the writers. Why? What do you attribute that to? Like the favorites that
he's hysterical and he's a white guy. And if you have mostly white guy writers, they're going to write their own pieces from their point of view, which is understandable. You know what I mean? Characters really mostly come from the actor. Very rarely, I think, can a writer write a character. I know it's been done, but very rarely does a writer write a character for somebody. Like, that comes from within. That's why sometimes I would watch the show and I could tell when it was a writer's show and when it was an actor's show. Because when it was an actor's show, there was a lot of characters. When it's a writer's show, there are a lot of topical pieces.
Oh, that's so interesting. That's such that's a juicy bit of trivia. I like that.
Oh yeah. And there's years when you can say, oh, it's a writer's show. And then there's years it's an actor's show. But anytime somebody comes there from the Groundlings, they're going to do killer characters.
So how do you find out that you got the gig, that like you have made it on SNL? You
remember, they said, Lauren wants to see you. Oh, so I auditioned 2 times in New York. And then Lauren and Bernie Brillstein, his manager, who's like infamous himself, came to see the show. And I mean, it was so scary. We knew. And I had written 2 sketches and I put Will in both of them. One was a prom sketch.
Wait, came to see what show?
The Groundlings. Yeah, because, when they saw a showcase for Chris that first time. But this time it was the regular show that was on at 8:00. And I wrote 2 sketches and cast Will in both of them. Mm-hmm. One was a prom sketch, and the other one was a kid in the cockpit, which I did do on SNL, this kid in the cockpit. And then, like, a couple of weeks later, they said, Lauren wants to see you at Paramount. And I remember buying a dress I couldn't afford, but I was just like, it was all grueling. And then I go in and Will was with me, and, he was right after me. And when I found out that, I got it, I didn't want to ruin it for him.
What was that meeting like? So you're face to face with Lauren.
He's like, Cheri, we want you to come to New York. And I was just, the funny thing was, he never said, you got the show. And I'm thinking, to shop? What, you know what I mean? Because he never said, and he goes, we want you to continue to write. You'll have an office. And little did I know that I would have to write. I was so flattered. Wow, he wants me to write. I was like, to say I was over the moon, it was ridiculous. It was, but I wanted to contain myself because I didn't want to ruin it for Will. And so I just said, he just wanted to find out more about me. And so I waited for Will, and then he came out. When he came out, we just held each other's hand, walked into the parking lot, and then just screamed and screamed. And I remember going to phone booths. He called his mom, I called my dad. And it was, amazing, absolutely amazing. And so I remember Lauren said, we want you to do that prom scene in the first show, put Marielle Hemingway in it, something like that. And that she was on the second show, I think it was. I did the kid in the cockpit with Chevy Chase. And I remember, because when I wrote the sketch originally, I wrote the name of their captain was Captain Chase. I had to change the name. And I said to him, do you know when I wrote this? Because Will played, in the Groundlings. My Will's character's name was Captain Chase.
Wow.
And here you are. Yeah.
Okay, are you tired of sex podcasts that only focus on how to please your partner? Then Sydney in the Sheets is the podcast for you. In each episode, Sydney, Paige, and her friends talk about incredible ways to transform your life in and out of the bedroom. There are a lot of other sex podcasts out there, but they can be intimidating. Sydney in the Sheets feels more like a real conversation you'd have with your girlfriends. Sydney in the Sheets is a sex-positive podcast for women, made by women. Sydney and her friends will talk about losing your virginity, body count, purity culture, and everything in between. They talk about the good, the bad, the uncomfortable, and the embarrassing parts of sex and relationships, because they don't think anybody should be having bad sex. One of my favorite episodes is called The X Factor, and she and her friends talk about basically how they managed to finally get over their exes after she had like an unexpected encounter with one of her exes. And I just love that episode. They take Q&As, and I just think it's a great relationship and sex podcast. So to listen to Sydney in the Sheets, follow the show on Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, Spotify, or wherever you listen. You can also listen ad-free by subscribing to Wondery Plus in Apple Podcasts or the Wondery app. I am convinced that everyone's hair drives them nuts. Mine is curly and gets too dry in the winter, too oily in the summer, and I'm constantly having to buy new shampoo and conditioner to just battle the elements. The issue is that there's no one-size-fits-all shampoo or conditioner because we're all coming to the table with a unique body and hair chemistry. Well, I recently found a customized shampoo and conditioner solution called Prose, and it's kind of been saving my life. All you do is go on their website, prose.com, you fill out a quiz about your hair. For example, your hair type, how it feels, where it falls on the oily to dry spectrum, plus questions about your eating and exercise habits. And with Prose's algorithm, Prose finds a unique blend of ingredients to treat your exact concerns. I've been using the custom shampoo and conditioner, plus been experimenting with their hair oil and leave-in conditioner, and it's honestly made my hair more shiny and more full than it's been in months. All of their custom hair products are freshly made to order. And FYI, if you're not happy with the results, Prose will take back the product, no questions asked. So here's the deal. Take your free in-depth hair consultation and get 15% off your first order today. Just go to prose.com/hot takes. It's prose.com/hot takes for your free in-depth hair consultation and 15% off. Do you remember the first time you were recognized, like the Sunday after a show, like on the streets of New York?
You know what it was? There was a temple right up the street from me. And I remember when temple would let out, sometimes men, if they weren't with their wives, they would go like this, where, good job, or something like that, right? And then I remember one time I saw the one guy with his wife and I go, hey, and he just pretended like and I was just like, but I would know a lot of times after I passed somebody, because then I would hear them say, but the funny thing was I didn't notice it very much. I truly didn't. I'm really small. I don't get recognized a lot.
But also you're playing characters. Like you were always in wigs and makeup. And
I don't really think that people knew exactly kind of who I was or what I looked like. And you know what? It was a funny thing. It was because I did so many characters. And sometimes I think to myself, if I had played myself more, people would know how to cast me. But I wouldn't change anything. I would probably do more straight characters because then it's easier to cast you in something else, to know what you like. But I think I did so many characters, which I don't regret. It was so much fun. I don't think people knew exactly what I was.
I want to bring up a few of my favorite collaborators of yours, actors that you've worked with. And if you can just share an anecdote or a memory of working with them, I would love that. When I think of your era on SNL, I immediately think of Jim Carrey and his first episode hosting SNL.
Okay. The funny thing was he said when he first got there, I want to do the cheerleaders. My daughter's obsessed. I'm obsessed. And so it was really important. And he said to me, Cheri, I auditioned for SNL and I went into a deep depression when I didn't get it. So deep. It lasted like a couple of years. And I go, really? He goes, you don't know, this is the biggest dragon for me to slay. And it meant the world to him. And I could tell. And so we took really so much care when we wrote the sketch. And he ended up having, I think, the best show that I ever saw anybody have the whole 5 years I was there.
That lifeguard sketch?
I mean, let me tell you something, Jess. Steve Korn wrote that sketch, right? Real good writer, Steve Korn. He wrote that sketch. I can't tell you how many times he put it up. It didn't get in. He
pitched it and they didn't want it.
Yeah. And then the funny thing is like, once you pitch something in front of everybody and everybody reads it and it doesn't make it in, to bring it back, it's brutal, because we sit through so many sketches to have one come back that we already heard. It's like, can't you, we said no. But every time he brought that back, I thought to myself, that's a funny sketch. I mean, I'm picturing it. And then I'll never forget it. He brings it back for Jim. Now, this sketch has been already read out there at least 3 times, at least. Jim wants it in. And I am telling you, I laughed my ass off. And I was so happy for Steve Korn. And that is a testament to, as hard as a room is, when you believe in something and you can see it, to just, it's humiliating. It's very, very hard. I mean, I remember I did the character Simmered Down Now, and it didn't get in. And then my guy that I wrote it with, Matt Piepont, goes, Cheri, we should bring that back. And I go, no way, I'm not bringing that back in that room. It's a stupid character. It's silly. And, and he goes, Cheri, I really think we should bring it back. So he goes, I got your back. You're not alone. And I'm like, yeah, I'm alone. So I'm in the table and he goes, we'll call it something different. I go, well, as soon as I say Simmer Down there, they're going to know it's not different. I remember, Lorne Michaels goes, returns. And we start reading. And then the first time I go, Simmer Down Now. Oh, this is all I hear. Oh, and someone actually held up the sketch and then dropped it like that. When I say it's a rough room, and I'll never forget who it was. And I was just like, I was so embarrassed that I started laughing and crying. I couldn't even get the words out, Simmered Down Now. I wasn't even trying to act it. All I wanted was the sketch to be over with. I just wanted it to be over. And I knew I had to say that freaking line like 15 more times. And I'll never forget, like Tim Meadows was cracking up. And I'm like, is he laughing at the sketch or is he laughing at me? I'm losing it. I mean, there were tears coming down my face because I was embarrassed, but I was laughing. And it ended up getting in.
I'm remembering, this didn't even occur to me until you literally just told that story. I'm remembering how during this era, there was so much criticism. I remember the criticism that you guys were just doing catchphrases. And people there were think pieces on it. Like it was one of those SNL is dead. They're not even writing sketches. They're just doing catchphrases. Did that affect you guys? That wasn't
true in our era. I don't think that was true in our era. I think that was true more the era before us. But I will admit that Simmer Down was nothing but a catchphrase. Because it was like one summer, my friend Kenny and I are driving around. We're making each other laugh, yelling out the window, "Pick up your poop now. Slow it down now." And we're just being silly, making each other laugh. And I'm thinking, so that's what made it so embarrassing in the room was, making copies, the Stingster, and I really just thought to myself, that's what this is. I'm not going to, try and pepper it with any kind of intellect or any kind of, subtext, whatever. It was a catchphrase and it made me laugh. And it made my friends laugh. And so that, I turned her into a character or whatever, I gave her a little bit of depth. Was kind of interesting.
I love that. So just furthermore on the Jim Carrey, does he cast you in Liar Liar?
Yeah.
So did you guys become friendly based off the SNL experience?
No, I'll tell you something. We were, when he was the week we were working on the show, he's like, hey, you guys come to dinner with me. It was Will and I, because we were rehearsing. We went out to dinner with him at the Sony building. And there was like a restaurant that in the Sony building that I don't think everybody knew about. I don't know. It was very secret. And it was like a Japanese chef in there. And Will and I were so tired, but then he cast me in Liar Liar. But Will and I over the summer was invited to Jim's house for dinner. So we go and he's having this dinner party and some fancy people were there. And it was really kind of like we were intimidated, but I said, hey, Jim, after dinner, I go, do you mind if I look around? And he's like, no, go ahead. I was looking around and I go into this room and he's got the Joker all encased in glass. He's got Ace Ventura.
Like the costumes?
The costume in glass, encased, the full costume. All of his famous characters movies encased in glass. And then I saw the cheerleading uniform. And I was like, what? So I run out to Will and I show him, look. And then I said, Jim, why do you have cheerleaders encased in glass? He goes, Cheri, that meant more to me than anything you could imagine. And I go, and he goes, as I said, it was the biggest dragon for me to slay. And me being a part of, he goes, you don't know how much I love you guys doing that. He goes, and I just to see that meant that much to him, that he would encase it with all of his iconic roles.
The movie The Mask, where he pulled the green face?
Oh, yeah. It was what he wore. Right. And it was exactly what he wore encased in glass. And I was just like, that the cheerleaders was a part of it, blew me away. But that was a very, very special show. I thought it was stellar from beginning to end. I go, you know what? It's way better to host it than to have to be on it. You did it the right way.
All right. Next person. Tell me something about your experience with Betty White.
My only experience with Betty White was doing Hot in Cleveland. I am telling you, she was such a doll, so gracious, so funny. And I am telling you, Valerie Bertinelli, Wendy, Jane, these women got along so beautifully and were so supportive of each other. And I thought to myself, oh my gosh, I want this. I want this where, they're all enjoying each other. They all were so appreciative of what they had and each other. And the funniest thing about Betty was she nicknamed her assistant Nurse. So she could go like this, Nurse! Nurse! And I thought that was so funny. Incredible woman, incredible.
How did the Curb Your Enthusiasm opportunity come to you?
I remember Larry David called me at home and I was so excited that I really wasn't paying attention to what he was saying. Like, I don't know if you've ever done where you're so excited or you're just thinking of something else. You're not taking in the information. I wasn't really, because I thought, I'll find all about this later. Essentially, what he said to me was going to be all the information I was ever going to get. I showed up. There was no script. I was so intimidated. And I kept saying, is there any script? Is there even one piece of paper? I don't understand this. And I didn't know anyone good enough to say, I don't get it. What's going to happen? I have nothing memorized. And what he told me on the phone was, you're going to play this nanny and you're going to try and stop me from going into using the house bathroom. And, I promise you that anything happens, I'll take responsibility. You get fired because I clog it up. And that was it. And then it's like action. And I'm thinking, you were truly improvising and you're not sure how much to keep going. How long, and you don't want to step on his toes. It was very, very scary and intimidating. I'm so glad that it turned out well, but that was crazy. I couldn't say to him, Larry, I didn't listen to what you were saying.
Right.
Right. So excited. I didn't know him well enough to say, you're not going to believe this, but I couldn't say that to him. So I didn't say anything.
Amazing. And tell me about Keenen Ivory Wayans working on Scary Movie. You're basically playing the Courtney Cox, Gail Weathers role.
Yeah. Okay. I will say Keenen Ivory Wayans is the nicest, most beautiful, gracious. He's so peaceful, just handled everybody so beautifully with respect and yet be playful. He's the kind of person where I wanted to look at afterwards and like, is he happy? Like, it meant a lot for him to be happy to me, because he did let me improvise a bit. And he wasn't, I don't think he was letting people improvise. He kept, I think everything I improvised in, having no idea at all how big that movie would have been. No idea. But I'm telling you, I had a blast on it. There was another movie that I wanted so badly, and I didn't get it. And the people who we were in Vancouver who did get it, they were in the same hotel. And I was just like, that's the movie I wanted to be in. And I'm stuck being in the same hotel. And then one of my friends invited me to a party of that movie. And I'm like, I'm not going to any party. Well, I was having so much fun doing Scary Movie that I went to that party. And I was just like, I am where I was supposed to be. And Regina Hall, freaking doll, loved her. The boys, Marlon and Sean, Anna Faris, everybody was just wonderful.
What has stuck with you over the years to this day regarding your time with Lorne? Anything he taught you or just anything about your experience?
He made me do Barbara Walters, and it was the best thing he ever made me do. As I kept saying to the head writer, he asked me 3 times. I go, I can't do it. Ask one of the other girls. I don't even have a take on her. I don't do impressions. And then the 3rd time I remember he goes, Cheri, you don't understand. You don't have a choice. And I'm like, oh, okay. And it made me think, all right, I don't have a choice. And so I really started restudying her in a different way. And it was the best thing that I was ever made to do. And it's so funny because, you say, oh, I can't do that. I can't do that. I can't do that. You can't do something until you're made to do it, and not that you're going to nail it all the time. But if you count yourself out, it's kind of like you would have never known. And so I'm grateful that he hired me, and I'm grateful that he made me do Barbara Walters.
I love it. Cheri, this has been so much fun. So much juicy trivia. Thank you so much. I've loved this.
Pleasure.
I've loved this conversation.
Me too. This is fun.
Yeah. If you want to watch the video of this interview, just go to my Instagram, JessXNYC, head over to YouTube. The full video of the interview is right there. That's it, guys. We'll see you soon.
Okay, let's be real. Building a website, usually a headache, but not with Durable, the #1 AI website builder. With Durable, your website is live in minutes. No templates, no coding, no back and forth. Just describe your business, and Durable instantly creates a stunning professional site. Yeah, like magic. You also get a custom domain, AI-powered content, and built-in SEO tools to drive traffic. I know. How great is that? Durable.co. Because building a website should be easy. That's durable.co. Try it now.
Marketing is hard. But I'll tell you a little secret. It doesn't have to be. Let me point something out. You're listening to a podcast right now, and it's great. You love the host. You seek it out and download it. You listen to it while driving, working out, cooking, even going to the bathroom. Podcasts are a pretty close companion. And this is a podcast ad. Did I get your attention? You can reach great listeners like yourself with podcast advertising from Libsyn Ads. Choose from hundreds of top podcasts offering host endorsements, or run a pre-produced ad like this one across thousands of shows to reach your target audience and their favorite podcasts with Libsyn Ads. Go to libsynads.com, that's LIBSYN, ads.com today.